Welcome, everyone, to the L7C Podcast. Today, we have a very special episode for you all today. Making her debut on the L7C Podcast, we have Dr. Kassie Lowery. How are you doing today, ma'am?
I'm doing well today. It's definitely interesting since we just switched times.
Now, that is the truth. That is the truth. And since it's your first episode on the L7C Podcast, we are very excited to have you, as we are going to be talking about some very interesting stuff. We're going to be talking about CrossFit and feminism. And before we get into that, do you mind if I call you Kassie during this podcast?
Please call me Kassie.
Perfect. So first, Kassie, I guess just a little introduction since it's your first one on here, who you are and what do you do?
Yeah, so obviously my name's Kassie, and I am a postdoctoral fellow right now in psychology. I work with kids, specifically in neuropsychology, looking at kids that have autism and developmental disabilities. So I'm the person you go to when you're trying to figure out how to best help your kid.
Nice, easy, efficient answer. So what we're talking about, CrossFit and feminism, like what got you into CrossFit?
So CrossFit's always been kind of like a really interesting thing to me. Unfortunately, as many people know, it's pretty expensive. So it takes a while for you to be able to kind of hit the, income level that really you need in order to be able to afford it. But I had finally hit that point in my life when I was in Florida, and I had a lot of I had a friend the first year I was in Florida, but I really wanted to open up and find more kind of friends, have a friend group, somebody I can connect with. And exercise has always been a way for me to kind of decompress from the day. So I thought CrossFit was kind of a 2-in-1 for that. Instead of trying to find people individually, I saw what CrossFit could be as a community, and I really enjoyed that. And I just got hooked after that, to be honest.
So what made you go the CrossFit route? Why didn't you want to do Olympic weightlifting or bodybuilding or anything like that?
So, I've never done Olympic weightlifting or bodybuilding, and I wasn't really focused on how my body necessarily looked when I was going into this. I think the biggest piece overall is just the fact that CrossFit's known for being a community. It's known for kind of bringing people together. And I think that there are definitely group classes that you can go to, but not everybody really shows up all the time. Whereas CrossFit's kind of seen almost like a family, especially depending on what box you go to or gym, I guess is really what I should clarify there. Lots of people don't know what a CrossFit box is, but it's really just CrossFit gym, but we call it a box.
That is very interesting. Very good to know, because I actually didn't know that either. So with the community and things like that, and you've been doing it for a couple of years now, right?
Yeah, I'm going into my second year, I think. In August, it'll probably be year 2.
So how has CrossFit changed your life? Has it changed it for the better, or hopefully not the worse?
No, it hasn't changed it for worse. So I've always gone through kind of spurts of exercise groups that I like. At one point I was running a lot. I've always been a little bit more drawn to weightlifting. But I'm definitely somebody who tries to run away from cardio almost at all costs at this point in my life. And CrossFit was kind of that nice cross between the two. Haha, CrossFit, right? But I really enjoy cardio when I have to throw heavy weights around. It makes me feel a lot better about myself because I get to see what my body can truly do rather than just running on a treadmill with no real, I guess, end point other than a number, which while is great. And I think that people love running, are totally entitled to that. It's just not my thing. I actually hurt my knees pretty bad running. Which is the one thing that also is kind of helpful in CrossFit is because you almost get a personal trainer. You're in a group, obviously, but every coach is very well versed on how to modify anything that you're doing in order to make it not hurt, because the entire goal of CrossFit is to make sure that you're functionally moving. It's a functional fitness movement. It's not a one size fits all, and they really make sure to do that for you.
That makes a lot of sense. And then like with the pros of CrossFit, you talked about the community. So I'm assuming that's a pro of CrossFit. What are like other pros of doing CrossFit?
Yeah. So, I mean, I want to touch on the community a little bit more because I really don't know that anybody can ever truly understand like a CrossFit community until you like get into it. I have made some of the best friends that I like could ever imagine in a CrossFit gym. And I think that like we all joke that it's because we go through kind of like this like horrible thing. Like that's what makes no sense about CrossFit is you go in, you like feel like you're near death almost every time that you get through a workout. But like the fact that you survived it and like the community in general just makes sure to like really cheer you on and like not in a way that makes you feel singled out. They truly want you to like really succeed, and everybody's at a different like level in their CrossFit journey. Like there are people who are in their 60s, there are people that are 15, 16 coming in lifting weights for the first time. And really what the CrossFit community is about is making sure that everybody feels welcome. Like it has nothing to do with like how you look or how much you can lift. Like anytime somebody hits a PR, whether it be 20 pounds or 350 pounds, everybody's there to cheer you on. And the thing with that is like, even though we do a lot of stuff in the box, we actually make a really big effort to like get outside of the box. And like, these are people you like form long lasting relationships with. I had friends in Florida that really supported me through a really tough time in my life. And I don't know that I would have had that otherwise. So the community part's like really a huge part of CrossFit. And I mean, there's been some controversy with CrossFit itself, but like the communities that are at our levels are all very like great. And it's really just about finding your fit. As for like other kind of pros of CrossFit, like I love CrossFit because I get to see what my body does. Like I don't necessarily go in, and it's not one where I think about how people are like looking at me. I think about like how much weight can my body lift? How much better can I get at this movement? Because there's constantly like tweaking of how you lift things to make sure that you don't hurt yourself. Because I think one of the huge misconceptions is that you go in, you throw a bunch of weights around, and then like you hope for the best, basically. And that's really not what it's about. Your coach is literally watching you at every second, making sure that you're not going to basically like maim yourself or kill yourself by lifting really heavy weight, which I think where CrossFit gets a really bad rep. Because unless you've been in a box, like you don't recognize how often like your coach is correcting you, and they do it in a way that isn't demeaning. Like they make sure that it's so you know that you're not going to hurt yourself. Because anybody who goes in and tries to throw around like 150 to 200 pounds, like there's a pretty good chance that you're going to like not kill yourself, but hurt yourself pretty severely if you're like not able to do the movement correctly. Because I can lift lots of weight poorly.
Yeah.
And then my back hurts real bad the next day. So, I mean, it's like getting an individualized, really like workout, like coach, but you're in a community that's really like helping you to like achieve the next thing. Yeah. I mean, I think the biggest part is the fact that like I love CrossFit because I got to see how my body works. And I've been somebody who's struggled with my weight throughout my entire life. And the CrossFit box is like the one place that I don't worry about that. Like I worry about my body composition in order to like execute things, but not because of aesthetics anymore. If that makes sense.
That makes sense. And then with the cons, you brought up the money, that it's hard to get in financially wise. How, like, where is the starting points money wise to get into a CrossFit box?
So, I mean, I will say that one of the biggest things I think people need to recognize is like, it's about your priorities. Like it has to do with kind of like where you're able to like figure out what can I do without and what can I do. For me, it was kind of a threefold where I was like, well, this makes sense for me spending money on it because like I need friends and I need somewhere to de-stress. And then I'm already paying for a gym membership. So like, why don't I just do something that I love instead of going to, and I love Planet Fitness. It was a long-term thing that like I really loved going and working out. But I was already paying money into, albeit a lot cheaper, of a gym, but like I didn't have any friends. Like I walked in, I walked out, and that was it. So I think that like most people can make it work if you're like a working professional at this point. I think whether or not you're gonna have all the fancy bells and whistles is a different thing. I was living on like 25 grand, I think the year before, in a pretty expensive area. So like it just wasn't doable for me. But the second year, like it's something that I've made fit into my budget because I know I need it and because it's something that I love. So like I think if you really like balance it out and figure out like, well, what things like am I getting out of this membership? Because lots of places will actually like help with coaching, like nutrition as well. We do a bunch of things at my new CrossFit gym that is like wellness related as well. So like you get a lot more than like just CrossFit, if that makes sense.
That does.
It's really about like trying to balance out like what exactly are you looking for versus like what are you willing to spend. I think that that's always the first thing that people are like, well, I can't do it because it's way too expensive. Well, that might be true, but there are also different gyms that offer different kind of like packages too that helps. If you're not a nutcase like me and don't go 6 days a week, then you can probably buy one that's not the unlimited package, but that's just where I was.
Got you. Makes a lot of sense. We're going to switch gears now, talking about some feminism. And Kassie, A, what is feminism? B, why is it important to you? And C, why it should be important to everyone?
Yeah, so I think feminism is an interesting one because I don't know that necessarily everybody agrees on what feminism is. I think a lot of men hear it and they're like, oh, like that means that they hate men. And that's really not. That's not how it should be. And that's not really how I see it. I think feminism gets a bad rap because of its name. But I think that feminism at its core is we are equals. Like we're not beneath anybody else. We can do the things that other people do. And I think that that's really kind of where that feminism piece comes in. And like, it's something that I think as you get older, and maybe I might be wrong, I'm a millennial, so maybe Gen Z is a little bit better with this at this point. But I think as I got older, it became more prominent for me, especially like being in a working profession, being in different like areas and groups. I don't know that it's something I necessarily thought about until recently. So I think just in general, like it's that fight for equality, like many people are fighting for.
Makes sense. Is there any like connection with the two topics, like feminism and CrossFit, or like feminism in CrossFit? Is there any connection like that?
Yeah, so I think that in all honesty, like the reason that I really love CrossFit is partially because I think it made me a feminist that I didn't know I was. As I said before, like a lot of times we go into these gyms and we really want to like fix our fitness. We want to lose weight. Like I'm somebody who's struggled with my weight since I was probably like 9. It's just not something that is easy. I like food and food doesn't always like me back. But the thing is like a lot of times people are like, well, what do I wear to a CrossFit gym? Like, can I wear this? Can I wear that? And you hear this a lot from women, especially for women who are just starting. And the resounding kind of answer to that you always get from like more seasoned CrossFitters is nobody cares. Like wear whatever you're comfortable in as long as you can lift the weight and like do what you want. Like at the end of it, we're all just trying to survive. Like you get to the end, you have sweat angels, there's sweat dripping everywhere. I don't care what Bronda's wearing. Like I don't care what Beth's wearing. I just want them to feel good about their workout at the end. And when I started CrossFit, I stopped thinking about weight loss. I stopped thinking about how my body fits into the way that like commercial magazines expect me to look. Like I started caring about the fact that I can squat 285. Like I can deadlift lots of weight. And that is kind of where that like kind of started to come into it. Because when you're in CrossFit, there's not a male and a female workout. We all do the same workout. Physically, women can't lift quite as much as men, but I do know that there are a lot of women in my gym that can lift more than most of the men. And I think that that's really empowering. And I think that started, if you can do that in a gym where you're throwing around 200 to 300 pounds, Like, why is that not the case in the real world? Like, you never hear somebody say like, oh, you did like a good job, like back squatting that for a girl or anything like that. You hear them say like, that was an awesome dead squat. That was an awesome back squat, or that was an awesome deadlift. Like, you killed it. And I think CrossFit just kind of gives a lot of women the room to be, if that makes sense. Like, you get to be a person. You're not there for like men's enjoyment. Like, you're there to further like your own strength and be your own person. And I always forget who quoted it, but I think it might have been Dottier. She's a big CrossFitter in the CrossFit world. And she basically said that women need iron because it unfucks us. Like, we think that we always have to be small and take up less space. And like, iron, as in like an iron bar, really teaches us to take up space and to really like be there. And I can probably find the quote, but it's one of those quotes that just kind of like follows me around. And if I could get it tattooed on my body without it like looking like a book and a chapter book, I would do it. But I don't know that I can withstand a needle. I can lift heavy weights, but the needle might be too much.
Yeah. So I guess with that, you brought up the clothes thing. Did you see that when you were going to Planet Fitness or other gyms, that women cared about what they were wearing in those gyms compared to obviously a CrossFit gym?
I mean, for myself, I definitely felt less comfortable walking into a gym with less clothing than what would cover my entire body. I think that there are definitely women who are very comfortable wherever they're at, but they tend to be more of kind of what you think of as like a standard magazine, kind of like fitness. And I don't mean that in any like bad way. Like, I want people to wear whatever they want to wear. I just saw less of like the willingness to wear whatever they wanted to wear in Planet Fitness versus like when I go to a CrossFit gym. Like, you might show up at a CrossFit gym with like 2 or 3 layers on because it's cold, especially if you're in the middle of the Midwest in the winter. And by the end of it, like, regardless of the size of your body, like, you might be down to a sports bra and like short shorts. And that's just not something that I saw at Planet Fitness. And I don't want to say that that's because it's like Planet Fitness, but I think that it lacks that community and that kind of like camaraderie almost, because like we're all going through the same thing. Whereas at Planet Fitness, you kind of go in, do your thing, and like you leave.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's absolutely right. So like going forward with yourself, where do you see your CrossFit journey going? Do you plan on doing competitions? Do you want to like ascend up those ranks, or do you want to just do like you keep doing what you're doing and then maybe enter like a local competition here and there?
I definitely like want to do like local competitions. I don't know that I'm ever going to be like, I started my like journey a little bit later than most people, I think, in CrossFit. I've never been somebody who's been like super excited about like going and like doing huge competitions. If that ends up being in the cards for me, I definitely wouldn't like turn it down. But like, I get pumped about every time that my PR goes up, every time that my like kind of like physical ability is able to get there. So I don't want to rule anything out, but right now I think I'd be happy to just kind of continue what I'm doing and seeing how we go from there. As far as in the future, I actually like, I think that there's a lot like mental health wise that kind of gets me a little excited about like potentially down the road, like incorporating, I guess, kind of like therapy or like self-esteem groups into CrossFit. I think that there's a lot there. And I think that will require much more research. But that is kind of like a long-term goal, is to maybe figure out how to like incorporate that into the wellness kind of transition that we've had in the world, especially the United States recently, about like battling obesity and things like that, so that kids can feel good about themselves. And I don't want them to get focused on like, you need to lose weight to feel good about yourself. Like, if you're healthy, you're healthy. Let's do things that you enjoy to get you kind of where you need to go.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Actually, Kassie, we're nearing the end. Is there anything else that you wanted to hit on, talk about in your first episode? How are you feeling?
Good. I think that the biggest thing that I want people to know is like, CrossFit isn't something that you have to lose weight for. It's not something that you have to be in shape for. I think I had taken almost an entire year off of like working out before I went into a CrossFit gym. So like I had the membership, I just wasn't necessarily using it as well as I should have. And I think that a lot of people get intimidated. Like most CrossFit boxes are just normal people. And they just want you to feel welcome. But one of the big things is like sometimes the members are just as shy as like the new people. So if you don't immediately feel like you fit in, like don't feel scared to like walk up to somebody and say, hey, like what's going on? Like, can you show me how to do this? Most people are excited when you ask them about it. We get very excited, which is where the joke comes in that CrossFitters and vegans, like, what are they going to talk about? Probably either CrossFit or veganism, because we both get crap for talking about our passions. But I mean, like, you ask a CrossFitter anything, and they're going to be super excited to tell you how to do everything and anything, and probably more than you're even ready for.
No, that's super, super sweet. So we are reaching the end, and since it is Women's History Month, I'm going to go with my typical spiel closing that you guys hear every time, and then I'm going to let Kassie close the episode. So obviously, thank you everyone for listening to the L7C podcast. Thank you, Kassie, for being on. We hope to have you again someday. Make sure you like, rate, comment, subscribe on anything that you listen to: Apple Music, Google Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify. And yeah, we are just keep it on, and make sure you check out everyone else's episodes. And Kassie, the floor is yours.
So I know that it is National like Women's History Month, and I think that is awesome. And I want everybody to just go out and like learn as much about women's history as you possibly can. I think it's something that we can all be a little bit more in tune with. I know that a lot of times like it tends to kind of get brushed under the rug or things like that. But women, especially, like I want you to know where your roots came from and see what you can do next, because there are women out there that are going to continue to make new waves, and I can't wait to read about it in 10 years.
And with that being said, the Dr. Kassie Lowery is out of here. Thank you, everyone, for listening to the L7C podcast. You guys take care. Thank you for listening to this episode of the L7C podcast. Be sure to like, rate, review, and subscribe to the channel. Follow us on all social media platforms, and we'll be talking to you guys soon. Take care.